Highest honors to my prophet, Noble Drew Ali, peace be upon him. Honors to all the divinely led prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius, to name a few. We give honors to our forerunner, Marcus Messiah Garvey Jr. We give honors to everybody who is tuned in with us here on this program of the Sheik's Table. Everybody who is seeking truth, everybody who has love in their heart. We give honors to the studio and its staff for producing this show. And honors to everything that is righteous and honorable. It's me once again, your brother, Dr. Brother Grand Sheik, J. Page Bay, of the Moorish Science Temple of America, specifically Temple 27, right here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We have a good one for you tonight. We're going to be getting into a favorite topic of mine, of any Moor that you'll meet, and a favorite topic of the Moorish Science Temple of America. But what makes it such a favorite is it has to do with each and every one of us. We have a doctrine that is universal. As you notice, I named different prophets, some who might be the prophets that you read and follow as well. We don't like to limit ourselves and put ourselves in the box, because when we say more science, we're talking about science in general. We're talking about knowledge to know, just from the perspective of the Moor, because I have a unique perspective of life just like you have. The topic of nationality is what is probably one of the most under-talked and necessary conversations that we all as world citizens need to be having right now, especially here in the United States of America. It's universal because everybody has the right, according to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, rights of the child, everyone has a right to a nationality. Now, we're going to go over what nationality is and show you specifically why it's important for you. Before I do that, I want to note that it is in itself the forgotten piece, specifically of American citizenship. Don't take my word for it. Research it for yourself. If you know about American history and governmental history, this may resonate with you. But at the inception of this country, there were many different nations and peoples here. One of the points and objectives of America, United States of America, was that on this piece of land, many different nations who may worship and have different religions can come together and enjoin with one another and worship under their own vine and fig tree. You know, many times in school we were told that the British came here because they were facing religious persecution and they wanted to escape that, or the tyranny of the king. And, so this has always been a place of freedoms. But the thing about nationality was that it was your ticket to citizenship, because since everybody was coming onto one landmass from different nations, it was imperative to conglomerate with those of your nation so that you could build your communities. We still see remnants of this in some of our major cities. Most of the major cities, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. They have a demographic where the urban community is split up by neighborhoods. I lived in Chicago for a number of years, and I know that mostly the Moors were in one area. I knew that the Italians usually lived in a certain area, the Mexican brothers and sisters living in the area, so forth and so on. The Jews had an area, right? And so this is why we get back to what we were talking about and explaining before is if you're an American, what type of American are you? Because many different nationalities are born on the continent of America. So what kind of American are you, right? That was the original deal. That's what it was all about, because when you or your ancestors may have came here as immigrants from another country, you know, let's take an Italian family. When they came here, they didn't go to where all of the Polish were living, right? They went to where the other Italians were living. And so when you know you're in Little Italy, in one of the major cities, is because you see Italian flags and the restaurants and the stores, and even to the bank might be of a national affiliation. All right. So why is that? Why have we got away from that? Well, let's look at it from a lawful perspective, and let's see if we can dissect a couple things with this. It says that quality or character which arises from the fact of a person's belonging to a nation or state. Let me read it one more time. That quality or character which arises from the fact of a person's belonging to a nation or state. All right. Nationality, as it continues, determines the political status of the individual, especially with reference to allegiance, while domicile determines his civil status. Nationality arises either by birth or by naturalization. According to Savigny, nationality is also used as opposed to territoriality for the purpose of distinguishing the case of a nation having no national territory. All right. Now, what nation or state do you belong to? All right. Now, that might seem like either an easy question or a loaded question. Being born in a state is the assumed way to have nationality, okay? Or to be naturalized in a state. Now, little homework for you. Go look up the definition of a state, okay? What made you a citizen of Indiana or Ohio? By being born there, some may say birth certificate, some may say, your contracts or your ties. But read your birth certificate and ask yourself if it has anything in language to do with you being a citizen of your state you were born in. The reason I pose this question is because if you look up immigrants or foreign nationals when they come into the United States, they receive a U.S. certificate of citizenship, right? There is a formal way to be acknowledged by your state and to be a citizen thereof. This has always been the custom, the practice. Why I know this is because once you get a passport, if somebody from a foreign state gets a passport from a foreign nation, it'll say that nation, right? Even if they have a United States passport, there's a bar on there that says nationality. If somebody's from Morocco, but they immigrate to the United States and become a citizen, their nationality still says Morocco. If they're from Pakistan and come here, their nationality still says Pakistan. The interesting thing about us is when we're born here, it says United States of America. Now, I'm not here to play the advocate, but I want us to think critically that the origin story of most people in America is one of immigration. Where did that not become relevant anymore when we know that thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions even, came through the ports of the eastern seaboard of the United States of America only some 4 generations ago? Is that nationality lost? When did they become white? When did the Italians or the proud Polish or the Germans who moved over here become a white person? What about the so-called people who were enslaved from Africa, from the countries of Africa? When did they become blacks, Negro, colored, and then get a passport and his nationality on the passport says the same thing as his nationality on the passport when they have 2 separate bloodlines, 2 separate origin stories, 2 separate histories that go beyond and before the 250-year history of the United States of America. So a lot of times what we're conflicted with and by is the lack of understanding of who we were past or before 250 years ago, because that's surely who you are now. I love the United States of America, but we mostly, all of us, have an origin story before the incorporation of this country in 1789. There's more to that paradigm that we'll be getting into in the Sheik's table. But I also want to bring our attention to a key word in this word nationality and this definition in the Black's Law Dictionary, which is character. Character. And that makes me think in a spiritual sense. Because on the flip side, when you're being who you are, whether that be a proud German, a proud person that has ancestry back to the days of to the country England. If you're a proud Taiwanese, right, and you move to America and you become a United States citizen, character stands out to me more than sometimes the nationality, for the fact that what is a nationality? How are you representing that nationality if you don't have an upright character to go with it? This is one of the reasons why we teach about and love the tenets of Jesus, why we love the spiritual tenets of the prophets and the ancestors, because all these things, they actually do come together. There's no strange happening why it says that quality or character which arises from the fact of a person's belonging to a nation or a state. What do we mean by that? When one has a nationality, he has to, and he truly lives according to it, he has to embody the nature of that particular nation. He has to embody and he represents the, as it says, the quality of that nation. Everybody who has national pride, who loves their origin story, who loves their bloodline, enjoys the culture, customs, and takes pride in who their ancestors are, right? And mostly, if you notice how it goes, and you ask somebody about their country, their nationality, or whatever, they want to tell you the good things. They want to tell you the good history. They want to, um, imbue in you the love for their people and their nation that they have for it. They want to give you their best. They want to show you their best face. When we're talking about being American citizens, we love our country. We love to talk about the diversity of the nations in America. We love to talk about the strength of America. We love to talk about, those things that make us American. But when you get a little deeper and you talk about what kind of American are you, there's even more rich history there. There's even more to love about yourself. And in that is the reason that imbues ones to have a resounding character. Because we also know that there's a side to our experience as American citizens where we can see things that we don't necessarily agree with. There's aspects of the secular world that I don't agree with that I know aren't necessary and proper for a country's best development. And you can imagine what some of those things are. Us as Moorish Americans, as Muslims, in general, we don't drink alcohol. I'm not condemning anybody who does. What I'm saying is alcohol has not made the country a better place. I'm just picking on alcohol because there's plenty of people who know how to drink it responsibly and, do their thing. But if the good stories of alcohol outweigh the stories of alcoholic fathers or, situations where alcohol has destroyed families, if the good stories outweigh the bad, I could, maybe you have a case. But we know in general that if anything tells you you need to do it responsibly, or anything has the propensity to have people get in life-threatening and fatal car accidents just for having a little too much of it, then we have to take that into account as a nation. There's certain things that happen in our public school systems that you hear reports on, and you see these things in the teachers with the students and different kinds of things where if people were unto um, themselves and they had national principles, they would be able to interact with other nations and peoples in this country more responsibly, because when you have a group, when you have a nation, when you have a nationality behind you, you have a community that holds you responsible and to the standard of its character. So it's something to think about, because when there's national pride in the people that you're building with are like you, think like you, have culture and customs like you're comfortable in your own skin. Then you're not afraid to go out into the world and love others because you know who you are. And all you would really truly want is for others to experience that same love of themselves. Mostly that's what we do at the Moore Science Temple of America. We try to get people to understand that we have a nationality, which is Moorish American. We are not Negro, black, and colored. And also, you have a nationality, and we want to encourage you to figure out what that is so that you can imbue the character of your most righteous forebearers so that you can help uplift fallen humanity. Speaking of that, I'll close out with this. Um, right now, there's a lot going on in the world. We're in a time where many saying that we are in World War III. You know, I have a family member who told me uh, he used to be pretty high up in the you know government, like special forces and stuff like that in the military, and he said, you know what, pretty much we're going to have a World War III, and this was I don't know, maybe close to a year ago, because he keeps up with the stuff that's going on. He's not active right now, but I said, man, that's very interesting, but I can't say that it's not those times, prophecies, and everybody feels something in the air. Now, for me personally, no matter how scary something gets or seems or what we don't want to happen, it's okay. As long as you're helping with the good, then you really shouldn't have anything to worry about if you've been working on your connection with the higher power. We call them Allah, and you've been concentrating on doing good things, then good things are coming for you. It's the law of the universe. You do good, and good will come back to you. But I will say that these are prophetic times. Um, I would share this with you when we're speaking about Jesus. He says in Matthew 24:6, starting at verse 6, he says, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains." Mm. I like that perspective. And it makes a lot of sense to me. Just hear me out, because we think war, we think destruction. But sometimes you got to take yourself to a higher elevation. And you can do that when you are on God's side. Seek the Almighty Creator and understand that sometimes to build, He destroys. Now, I'm staunchly against unnecessary war, right? I'm really against the fact that most of the wars now, they're fought by people who have nothing to do with the inception of it. The guy who was, the young man who was sitting at home, watching TV, eating cheesy puffs 2 weeks ago, is now on the battlefield fighting for, as he may be told or sees it, God and country. And that's all right, if that's where your heart is. But two strangers hauled out into the middle of a battlefield or wherever to take each other's lives has very, very slim permissibilities in the spirit world. And when it's for purposes not readily understood by the people who are fighting, if it's for greed or for things that the general public doesn't agree with, then this is something that we must take into account, that, hey, the Almighty's in control. Birth pains, as he speaks here, gives me the indication that even though these things are happening, they're preparing the people, they're preparing the world for something new. For some, this may be an ending, and for some, this may be a beginning. So I would say, work on your character, know thyself, find out, if you don't know, what your nationality is, and prepare for the beginning, because I know you're going to do more good than you're going to do bad. You're going to love instead of hate. That's the key. So care not what they say if you're on Allah's side, and prepare for your beginning in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Much love and appreciation to you for tuning in. That's all I have for us today. I'll see you next time right here at the Sheik's table. Peace and love.